I am going to create multiple videos for the rest of the remaining lessons in the Science Box kit. I'm hoping that this will make things a little bit easier for you as you work together with your student to learn more about dinosaurs and fossils. These activities are meant to be fun. All of the items are included in the box that Kosei gave you. There are a few of the activities that you will need some supplies from home, but they're simple supplies like a plate or a bowl. Otherwise, everything else is in this box. When your child brings their box home, I'm going to give you a little insight of what is inside. Each of them should have an activity book that looks like this. The activity book labels day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, has all of the supplies that you need and lists out the activities and additional questions that you can think about together and ask each other. And then also inside the box there are all the supplies, and I'll try to hold this up so you guys can see. And everything is labeled, that way it makes it a lot easier for you. So each day we're going to do a different activity. I'm going to do this as one full video, but we'll separate it days 2 through 5. That way you can find them easily. And when you have time, think about doing an activity a day with your kids. I also wanted to let you know, with this activity book, there are multiple options to fill out information. Questions, it gives you additional knowledge. It's a very good piece of information to learn about each activity and all of the science that goes behind it. So your students will know a whole lot more about dinosaurs and paleontology when they are finished with this activity, and they will have fun doing it. I also have 3 students in the grades that will be doing these as well. So I'm with you doing these with their kids. So I hope that you enjoy them as much as I did with my children. Another thing I wanted to say is whatever child brings this book back completed, their name will be placed in a drawing. I have a few really nice surprises that we had purchased this school year that we obviously were not able to use. And so I want to encourage you to work together as a family. Whether you have older siblings or younger siblings, everyone come together and do this box together. Make sure that your BIN student is learning and getting the activities done, and then bring this back. And I promise it will be well worth it. Every student that brings this back completed, I will have a small prize for them, but I'll put their name in a drawing, and the top 3 winners will get a prize. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My information is below. You can either contact me via my school email or contact me anytime on my cell phone via text message or phone call. But here we go. Let's start in. And welcome to Activity 2, where we are going to make a fossil. This lesson may take a little bit longer than one day. It's more of the waiting time to see the final result of it. So just keep that in mind and give yourself enough time to come back and see the final results. Inside your dinosaur activity manual, activity book, has all of the information that you need. At the beginning of each lesson, it has a little explanation of why we're doing the lesson that we're doing. And then it also has a little QR code that you can scan and find out a little bit more information. So in this instance, you can find out more information about a fossil and how fossils are formed or made. But during this activity, we're going to teach all of our students how that happens as well. So first, with any experiment, we need to gather our supplies. And like I said, most of these supplies are found in your book, or in your box, I'm sorry. So for this activity, we're going to need the 2 sponges that are provided, and your sponges may look a little different, but there are only 2 sponges inside the box. You're going to need the 4 tablespoons of Epsom salt, and every container is labeled, so as you can see it does say salt on the top. You're going to need the plastic spoon that is provided, and also a pipette, and this is what a pipette is. It kind of looks like a little syringe. You will also need a pencil for most of these lessons, so if it's not specified in the activity, just have one close by so you can jot some notes down. Some of the things that you're going to need from home is you're going to need a plate, you're going to need a cup of any kind, and then you're going to need 1/4 of a cup or 1/4 a cup of hot water. And this is something that I want to make sure that you have your parents help you get, because the water can be really hot and we want to make sure you don't burn yourself. I have just placed my 1/4 cup of hot water already inside my cup just to save some time. So first, what we need to do is you need to observe what you are doing. With every experiment and activity that we do in science, we always want to make observations first, because if you don't make the initial observations, then you won't really know how to compare at the end, right? So first we want to know about the sponges. This is how we're going to learn how fossils are made. So first, look at your sponges. See how big they are? What's the shape of them? What's the texture of each? How do they feel when you touch them? How do they feel in your hands? And what do you see as the difference between the two sponges? There is a section inside of your activity book. So take some time right now to go ahead and write inside your activity book the observations that you made of your sponges. Okay, now that you have your observations done, and I hope you took really good notes on those observations, because as scientists, we always want to make sure that our notes are really good and really thorough, which means there's a lot of information there. So at the end, when we go to compare, we have the best notes possible so we can make the best decisions and the best end results of how the experiment worked out. This next step, you're going to need an adult's help with it. So make sure you ask one of your family members to help you. Hopefully you're doing this together, so you already have them there with you. But you need to measure out your 1/4 cup of hot water. Like I said, I already did that in mine. So my hot water is already measured out in 1/4 of a cup, or 1/4 a cup of hot water. Next, you need to take your Epsom salt. Remember, it is marked on the lid. And you're going to add it into the water a few spoonfuls at a time. So grab your spoon and carefully go ahead and get a scoop and put it in. Get a scoop and put it in. And then you're going to stir it to dissolve it. So you do want to make sure that your water is pretty hot. That way it'll dissolve all of the salt. You also want to make sure, just do a couple spoonfuls at a time and then stir. It does seem like a lot of salt per the amount of water that we're using, but make sure to use your entire container or your entire little cup of Epsom salt. And you will notice, as you stir in your Epsom salt, your water is going to start getting a little cloudy, and instead of being clear, it's going to be kind of a white color. So keep a look at that. Now I have a little bit left, and I'm going to continue stirring it up. So go ahead and stir that and keep stirring it until all of your salt is dissolved. Once all of your salt is dissolved, you're going to want to pick one of your sponges. Now it doesn't matter which sponge you use. You can use either one, whatever one that you prefer, and place one of those sponges on your plate. So I'm going to use my little guy because I think he's cute and I want to put him on there. And then my other one, you're just going to leave on the counter and table where you're working at next to you. Once all of your salt is dissolved, you are going to want to take your pipette, which remember is this long stick that looks like this, and you're going to squeeze up on it on the big bulb at the top. Place the sponge down into your Epsom salt solution and then let go of the bulb, and you will notice their water comes up into the pipette or into the syringe. Then you're going to want to use the pipette and to drip that salt solution you just made all over your sponge. As you're dripping the solution onto your wet sponge that is on the plate, also consider taking your spoon and squeezing it down to help soak up all of the liquid. And as I said, continue that until your entire cup of salt water is completely gone and soaked into the sponge. Okay, so I have a correction to make. I read back through the directions, and you don't need to use your entire container of water. You just want to do a few drops at a time until your sponge is completely wet. So at this point in time, I still have an awful lot of water left, but my sponge, if you squeeze it, you guys can see that water dripping from him. That's plenty of water, and that is enough. So just make sure that your sponge is really, really soaked and has enough of the saltwater solution on him. And like I said, feel free to use the spoon or even your hands to help get him a little bit more wet if you don't mind getting your hands wet with salt water. And then this is the part where you're going to have to wait. So you're going to take your plate that has your sponge on it and the sponge that I told you to set down on the counter, and you are going to put that in a sunny windowsill. So if you have a place in your house where there's like a table next to a window or somewhere in the kitchen on the counter, go ahead and place both of those sponges on a sunny windowsill. Leave them uncovered, and you're going to wait until the water is completely evaporated from the wet sponge. And what that means is that the water that's in the sponge with the heat from the sun will eventually start to dry out the sponge, and there'll be no more water in it. That is evaporation. This may take a few days, so just go ahead and leave them there and keep checking on it. And once it's done, we'll see what the results are. So stay tuned. While you're waiting on activity 2 and for your sponges to evaporate in the window, you have some more learning that you can do and some fun quizzing that you can do with each other. Inside your box, there should be tooth and toe cards, tooth or toe cards, and they look like this. And each card is labeled. You have a stack that's alphabetical, so A through F, and then you have another stack that's 1 through 6. So you need to look at the dinosaur information cards, which are your cards 1 through 6. And on the back side, it does have a lot of information about dinosaurs and something that you can learn about the different kinds and their sizes. So then using the information that you find on these cards based on the dinosaur sizes or diets, that'll give you some clues. You take your cards A through F and decide which tooth or toe goes with which dinosaur. So see if you can figure it out. See if you can take the clues. See if you can search and figure out which is a tooth or a toe and what dinosaur it goes with. If you need to know the answers or you want to check your answers, at the bottom of your activity book, again, I'm going to show it to you, on page 5, there is an answer key right here at the bottom of the page. But don't look at it first. See how much you can guess and how much you know on your own. All right, welcome back. If you remember the activity that we did with our Make a Fossil, activity number 2, we took our sponges. We had one sponge that had nothing, and we had one sponge that we added the salt water to. And I told you to put them in a sunny windowsill, and then you're going to come back and we're going to see what happens once the water evaporated. So this should be a couple days later. So as you can see on my plate here, all of the water has evaporated. You can kind of see the crispiness of the plate, the salt water that has dried. So what I first want you to do is pick up your sponge. Well, first actually observe what does it look like? What do you notice? Are the two sponges, are they same or different? And why? And on the second page on activity 2, you have a section to write your observations. So go ahead and write those down. And then tell me what happened to your sponge that was filled with salt water. So feel free to try to take it off your plate. Mine's pretty hard and stuck to the plate. But what happened? What does it feel like compared to this one? So take a look and see, feel it, and then write down your observations. And so you're probably wondering, how does this even resemble fossils? Well, if you look in the bottom section on this page 4, it says, how does this work? And what we just did is permineralization. So a lot of times when an animal died, and it was buried in sand or dirt or mud, water, as it would rain or water would wash over it, would carry minerals from surrounding areas and would fill the tiny spaces of the pores within the bones of that animal. And so over a long period of time, those minerals would crystallize, creating hard cast of the bones, which is how we get fossils. So as you notice in the sponge that we added the salt water to, you can feel how crunchy it is, how more brittle it is. And so that's what happens when fossils are made. That's what made the sponges hard and brittle. The water filled the spaces or the pores inside the sponge and then crystallized it once the water evaporated. So don't forget to write your observations and tell us exactly how the sponges felt to you. Also, don't forget to fill it out and bring it back to school in the fall. I know that seems like a long time from now, but go ahead and bring it back, and I'll have a special prize for everyone that does. If you are in 5th grade and you're thinking, I won't be back at Ben's, you know exactly where we are, so feel free to drop it off at the front office, and I will make sure I get something to you. Hello, and welcome to Activity 3. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed Activity 2 and learned a little bit more how fossils are created and mineralized. In Activity 3, we are going to learn impressions and how scientists and paleontologists use impressions to learn about dinosaurs and how they behaved and how they walked and how they can just use a simple footprint to determine more about a dinosaur. So first, like I said, you're going to need to pull out your activity manual. It does have all the instructions in there, as I said. It has everything in there that you need. And also, like I said at the beginning, you can start and learn more information about the activity and about the reason why we're doing it with the QR code. So if you do have a phone that's able to do it, feel free to scan the QR code. If not, there is a website link for you. So feel free to do either one of those. I think you will thoroughly enjoy each of them. Once you're ready to do your activity, go ahead and gather your supplies. So like I said, most supplies are in the box, but you may need some from home. So from our box, you're only going to need 2 things. First, you're going to need your Model Magic clay, and you're going to need your skeleton dinosaur toy. There are 2 different types of dinosaur toys in the box. You are going to pick the one that looks like a skeleton. And then from home, these aren't objects that you necessarily have to use, but it just gives you a little bit more fun to play. So you can get things like feathers, leaves, acorns, just anything outside that we can make more impressions with. So I just went outside and I picked up just a weed leaf and a piece of bark from my tree out back. But feel free to try as many objects as you want. Make this fun, make it yours. Okay, so first we're going to remove the clay from the package. It's in a steel tight package, so it should be pretty soft and squishy. Make sure you throw your trash away. And then you're going to roll your clay into a little ball. You may have to work with it a little bit to get it so it's easier to squish and move around. And then you're going to roll it into a ball. So see if you can do that. If you do need help, ask a parent, a guardian, aunt, grandma, whoever's doing this activity with you, have them help you. So I put mine in a ball. Obviously my ball is not that great either. I should have asked someone to help me. And then put it on the surface that you're working on. Let me move so you guys can see this. Okay, so here's my ball. Then just take that ball of clay and go ahead and smush it down and flatten it with your hand. It doesn't have to be a really big, like a big flattened circle. This is probably pretty sufficient. Then you can decide what you want to do with your dinosaur and what impression you want to make. If you're like me, you'll probably notice the part that's on the surface is a lot smoother than the one that you push down. So if you are particular, like I am, and you want the flat side, feel free to flip it over and do whatever works best for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your dinosaur, and you can either decide to make a trace fossil, which is just the dinosaur's footprints. So you can just pick 2 of them and do 2 footprints. Like this. Or if you want to do multiple footprints, which are called trackways, because that kind of helps them know how dinosaurs move, you can do that as well and make multiple ones. If you want to just play and practice with it, feel free just to squish the ball back up and roll it back into a ball and flatten it back out. Another option you have is to mold a fossil. So if you take your dinosaur skeleton, you can actually use the side of it to mold out a fossil. And so what I would recommend doing, and you can see here, take the fossil, and if you want the whole tail part of your dinosaur, you'll just have to make a bigger circle when you squish it, and just squish it down in to the clay. And then once you take it out, you have a mold fossil imprint on your clay. Pretty cool. So what you can do is once you decide the design that you like, if you just keep it the way it is and set it to the side, the clay will eventually dry out and you'll have your very own molded fossil or trace fossil or trackway. So whatever one that you prefer to do. Again, if you mess up, go ahead, squish your ball, roll it up again, and start all over. Feel free to practice with the objects that you gathered from your home. Whether you gathered some things from outside, you can practice all sorts of different things. Because I'm sure you've seen sometimes there are leaf prints, on the ground outside, sometimes after it rains. So similar idea. So feel free to do that. And then whatever one you like, keep it that way. If you want to, another creative idea is to poke a little hole in the top of it, and you could use your pencil for that too. You can poke a little hole like this. Let it dry out like that, and then you can hang up your fossil if you want to, or hang it up, make an ornament out of it. Whatever you'd like to do. There are many, many options. But the best thing about this one is, if you mess up, you can just keep going over and over and over again until you like the design that you made. So practice with it. If you have siblings at home, let them practice with it, and see what type of impression you are going to make. And then what I would recommend you doing is you can learn more about trackways. There is another QR code or website so you can learn about trackways and how dinosaurs created trackways, and how this was such a great way for paleontologists and scientists to study the different types of dinosaurs, how they lived, how they traveled with each other, and how they worked together, or how they didn't work together and sometimes they fought, just based on a simple trackway from their footprints. Pretty cool. And then there's also a little scavenger hunt that I would encourage you to do at the bottom of the page. I think you will absolutely love it. Anyway, thank you for completing activity 3. I hope you have fun, and stay tuned for activity 4. Welcome back for activity 4. As I mentioned, you will always need your dinosaur activity guide, and you're going to want to turn it to activity 4, which is the sedimentary rock section. So what we're going to do today is we are going to construct layers of sedimentary rock. We're going to bury a dinosaur in it, and then once it dries, you're going to take your excavation skills and see if you can find your dinosaur and make some observations. What does excavate mean? It means to dig away at something, or at rock, in this case sedimentary rock, and dig away at it to find something, or just sometimes just to excavate means to dig a hole. So first, like I said, every beginning of your book, of the activity, there's a QR code or a website. So feel free to start there, and it'll teach you a lot more about the lesson we're going to be doing today, the activity we're going to be doing, and teach you a lot more about sedimentary rock. When you're ready to begin your activity, you need to gather your supplies. As I mentioned in the past, there are multiple supplies in the box, and those are where most of them will come from. This one you will need a few extra supplies from home. But from your box, first you're going to need your toy dinosaur. And I actually forgot to grab mine. So here's your toy dinosaur. Remember, there were 2 dinosaurs in the box. The one that looks like a skeleton fossil, we use that one for the making imprints. But you should still have one little one left. And again, your dinosaur may look different than the dinosaur in this box. I think all the boxes are a little different when it comes to what the dinosaur's sponges look like. So you have your toy dinosaur. You're going to have a clear plastic cup. You're going to have 3 layers of soil containers, and they are all marked for you. So you have layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. You're also going to need that spoon that we used in activity 2, so make sure you don't throw that away, and if you do, you can use any type of spoon, but go ahead and save that one. And then your box should also have a teaspoon, tablespoon measuring that you're going to use for this one as well. From home, you're going to need some water. So I just grabbed myself a cup of water. And then you may also want some paper towels or a plate when you get to the excavation part. That way things don't get as messy. And then you may want a toothbrush, an optional toothbrush. This is so when you are digging up the fossil and excavating the fossil, it helps brush away so you don't ruin the bones of your fossil. But first, we have to make our sedimentary rock. So disclaimer, this one also takes a couple days. We're going to first make our sedimentary rock with our dinosaur buried inside. You have to let it dry overnight, and then when it's dry, then you can do the excavation process. So this will be one that we'll have to come back and see. Stay tuned. But first, we're going to make our sedimentary sandwich. So according to the directions, we are going to need all 3 of our layers to make our sedimentary rock. The first we're going to make is our beach, and we're going to need layer 1 that is marked layer 1. And just so you know what is in this layer, if you're curious, it does also tell you in your box, or in your book, I'm sorry. But layer 1 has 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and 2 tablespoons of sand. So first, go ahead and pop the lid off of your layer 1, and you are going to knead the water that we gathered and give about a half a tablespoon of water. Now your measuring spoon only has 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoon, so just guesstimate. If you notice on here, especially for those of you who are in the older grades, 1 teaspoon is the same as 5 mLs, and 1 tablespoon is the same as 15 mLs, and those are marked right inside your spoon, so you can take a look at those. So if we're supposed to fill half a tablespoon of water, which is 15 mLs, half of it would be how much? It would be 7.5 mLs, correct? So you see that there's a 5 ml mark, so we know that we just want to go a little bit above that. It doesn't have to be perfect, just a good estimate is perfect. So go ahead and fill your tablespoon up with water, and then you are going to dump it into your layer 1, and you'll notice that some of the items start melting. Now this may not seem like a lot of water at first, but eventually it'll all mix up. So you're going to want to take your plastic spoon and dig it into the layer 1 container and start stirring it around. It may take you a while to stir this up, so take your time, have fun, and get someone else or a grown-up to help you, but make sure that you stir it up really, really well. As I'm mixing up my beach, because this is going to be the bottom part of our rock, our sedimentary rock, what are some things that you notice? I hope you didn't add any extra water, because you're not going to need it. But what are some things that you notice? I know this doesn't ask you in your activity book, but I thought it was pretty cool, especially if you haven't worked with cornstarch before. Whenever you mix cornstarch and water together, it's always a fun result. So what are some things that you notice when you're stirring it up? Talk about that. Talk about that with your families. What I notice is it starts to get really smooth and kind of looks slimy. When you hold your spoon up, it does take shape of whatever you are doing as far as stirring it. But eventually you'll notice that the sand that was mixed in there and the cornstarch all goes together, and you have this really pretty tan color. And let me hold it up to you so I can show it. So hopefully you guys can see that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that mixture of layer 1, and in your empty plastic cup that you have, you're going to dump that in there, and that is going to be the bottom layer in here. So go ahead and scrape all of that out and get it into that plastic cup. And you'll notice, because of the cornstarch and the mix of water, it forms to the bottom. Something else I notice as I'm stirring this out is that it gets hard pretty quickly, right? There are some spots, if you touch it, it's getting pretty hard if you're not messing with it. So go ahead and empty all of that out. And if you're like me, you probably just got it on your clothes. No worries. All of this stuff is washable and won't cause any stains. So once you get the layer 1 mix into your plastic cup, grab your dinosaur. And you're going to drop your dinosaur onto the beach. So just pretend that your dinosaur has died and drop him in onto your sand in the beach. You can put him in any way that you want. You can put him down flat, you can put him upright, whatever is best for you, but press him down gently into the mixture so he's down in there and really firm. So pretend this beach is from a long, long time ago. So second, we are going to get with layer 2. So you may, if you have a smaller working space like I do, you may need to put your stuff to the side, which is okay. But go ahead and grab layer 2, and layer 2 also has cornstarch, so you should see some similarities when you mix this together as well. But it also has 2 tablespoons in it of soil. And soil is like the same thing that we find on the ground, or maybe sometimes you plant flowers and stuff in the spring. Those are what you put in your pots. This one is asking that we add 2 tablespoons of water. So you're going to grab your tablespoon again, and the top of the spoon is considered 1 tablespoon. So we need 2 of them for layer 2. So that's easy to remember, 2 tablespoons for layer 2. So we're going to put 2 tablespoons down into this container, and let me pull this up a little bit so you guys can see it. And get your water, 2 full tablespoons down into layer 2. Go ahead and take that same spoon. It's okay if it has some of the beach left over. Go ahead and mix that together as well. And this is going to be our mud layer. This one will probably be a little less hard and squishy as the first layer, but tell me, what do you see? You see anything different? This is what mine looks like. It's kind of, see, and I just dumped some on my floor. Don't do that. Mine kind of looks like, it reminds me of when you, for those of you who love Oreos, and you dip your Oreos into your milk and you have the leftover cookie crumbs. That's what mine looks like. So just to give you an idea. So you're going to take this into your cup that has your dinosaur and your beach layer, and you're going to pour the mud layer over top. So at this point, you should see a distinct 2 layers. You can see the sandy layer and the mud layer. And your dinosaur should be almost completely covered. I did have some leftover mud and soil in my cup, so I'm just scraping that out and putting it down in. So that is our second layer. But as you remember, we still have 1 more layer to go because we have 3 layers to totally get our sedimentary rock. So the next layer is the volcano layer. And this one, as I'm looking back here just to make sure, has cornstarch and sand again in it. So you're going to take your layer 3, as it's marked layer 3, and you're going to add 1 tablespoon of water to layer 3. So go ahead and grab your tablespoon again, and go ahead and get a full spoon of water, and go ahead and dump that right in to layer 3. Go ahead and use that same spoon that we've been using and stir this up as well. This one shouldn't take as long either. The first layer was the hardest one because of the least amount of water that we have in there. So we're going to stir it up. You're going to see it looks kind of similar to your first layer that we did, but it's a little bit more liquidy and a little bit more runny than the first layer. So this layer is called our volcano layer. So the first layer is the beach. So we have to pretend that our poor dinosaur died on the beach. The second layer is our mud layer. So we're going to pretend that there was a mudslide, which is a lot of mud that comes down the side of a mountain and covers our beach, which is why our dinosaur is no longer being able to be seen. And then this last layer is our volcano layer. So we are going to pretend that there was a volcano nearby, and the volcano erupted, and it went on top of the third layer of our mudslide. So once you go ahead and stir that up, it's going to be like a white creamy mixture, kind of like a really thick milk. You're going to have your volcano erupt. And if you're like me, I like to make noises, so I normally do that. So here we go. So you're going to go ahead and put that on top. You'll notice it probably mixed in a little bit with the mud mixture, and that's okay, because eventually all of this is going to harden anyway. Go ahead and scrape everything out of that third layer container to make sure you get all of it in there. So here you go. Here are your 3 layers of your dinosaur. You shouldn't be able to see your dinosaur anymore. You should have pushed it down in the sand. And so what you want to do now with this cup is you want to put it in a safe place where no one will touch it and disturb it, and you're going to let all of that dry. So you'll probably want to come check it again tomorrow. That's probably about the best time, and then we will work on it then. So stay tuned. Welcome back to activity number 4. If you remember, we created multiple layers inside of our cup, and we buried a fossil inside of it. So now, once I told you to set it aside and let it dry. So as you can see, mine's pretty dry and crunchy. I'm not sure that mine turned out specifically well, which is okay. That goes to show you that sometimes with experiments, things just don't go always as planned. However, now it's time to excavate. And so what that means is we are going to take all of the material that we created and layered, and we are going to dig out the dinosaur that we laid in. So go ahead and take your cup, dump it upside down, and as you can see, mine didn't work out so well. Mine ended up being really powdery. So hopefully, when you did yours turned out a lot better than mine. But what you should be able to do, and I'll show you in the pictures, you should be able to see different layers. Some of these layers were pretty similar in color, so you might not have noticed a difference. But first, take a look and see. Do you see any distinction in the layers? Do you see any different coloring, any different textures that you notice a difference where the layers start and where the layers end? Can you see anything in your layers? Can you see the dinosaur that you hid? Sometimes, like I said, you can make out the layers, sometimes you can't. Remember, we did have a spoon in our pack, so you can use your spoon or your finger, but start digging away at your rock. Like I said, mine didn't end up like a big stack with all the layers. I must have just added too much water or not enough. It's hard to tell. But start digging away and see if you can tell where the dinosaur is. Did your dinosaur leave an imprint? What if you were to add some water to your mix? What happens? And if you want, you could also use a toothbrush if you have, not one that you're planning on reusing. But start to dig away and see what you can see and what you need to do. And as you slowly dig away, you will eventually be able to find your dinosaur. And as you can see, my dinosaur is still covered with a lot of dirt. And as you see, a lot of it just dropped off of it. That's what you would use the toothbrush for. Or you can even use your fingers and brush it off. A lot of times when paleontologists and scientists are excavating or digging away at the rock, they do it very carefully. And that's why they take brushes sometimes instead of picking at it, because they don't want to break any fossils or any bones. But at the end, you should be able to find the dinosaur that you hid. And then just read a little bit more about what's going on when you're looking for fossils down here. There's also this QR code that you can scan or have your parents scan to teach you more information. But hopefully you had a fun time learning how to create sedimentary rock and how those are created and how things get hidden in that so that they can be excavated at some point in time. Hello and welcome to Activity 5. This will be your last activity in the book. As always, make sure that you do have your dinosaur activity book and turn to page 10, which is Activity 5. This is where we are going to document a real fossil. So once paleontologists excavate a real fossil, so hopefully you had fun excavating yours and trying to see what it looked like and making observations, they have to take detailed notes on what they found. So today, you are going to document an actual fossil that came in your box. As always, go ahead and scan the QR code to learn additional information or visit the website that's listed at the top of the activity page. And then when you're ready to start your activity, gather your supplies. You're going to need a pen or pencil, and it also says a sharpened pencil, so there is a provided pencil sharpener in the box in case you do need that if you don't have one at your home. You're going to need a ruler, which is also in your box. You're going to need your fossil, which comes in this container, and it is marked real fossil on the container. You're going to need white paper. And another thing that's listed in here is 2 glue dots. My box did not have 2 glue dots in them, so if yours does not, I do apologize. However, feel free to use either a glue stick if you have it at home or tape. And if for some reason you don't have either of those at home, have your kid or your student bring their activity book back to school with the paper they're going to need, and we will take care of that and put it in their activity book for them. So first, what you're going to need to do is take out your fossil. And as you see, I still have my little fun dinosaur fossil here. You're going to take out your fossil, so go ahead and open up the real fossil container and dump your fossil out. Go ahead and lay it in front of you and draw a sketch of your fossil. As the questions in the book, what do you notice about its shape? Does it have any unique marks or features? Tell me about it. And so in your book, on activity 5 on page 10, you'll see there's a draw it section right here. So go ahead and tell me all about your fossil. And remember, as I said, paleontologists and scientists have to take really good notes, because once they leave what they're doing, they need to be able to come back and know what they found, the details, and everything about that particular fossil. So go ahead and draw a sketch of your fossil below and tell me all about it. After you've drawn a picture of your fossil, go ahead and write about it. Describe your fossil. What color is it? What shape? Are there any unique features, as I have asked? And does your fossil look like anything that is alive today? Now let me tell you that your fossil may look different than mine, or it may look different than one of your friends in class. These kits, like I said, may have different things, but should all have the same materials in them. So go ahead and on page 10 and write about it. Tell me all about it. Remember when you're writing to use complete sentences, capital letters, and punctuation. After you drew your fossil and you wrote it, we need to learn a little bit more about our fossil. So next you're going to measure your fossil. So provided in your box, as I told you, there is a ruler. So go ahead and take the ruler and measure your fossil. One side of your ruler has centimeters and one side has inches. Go ahead and measure your fossil, and obviously depending on the size of your fossil will probably determine if you're going to use centimeters or inches. It's going to ask you in your book to do the length. The length is this way. The width this way, and then the height is going to be the thickness of it, depending on how you lay your fossil. So in instance, since I'm going to lay mine like this, my height would be from the bottom to the top, or the top to the bottom. Go ahead and write those down in your book as well. Next, we're going to need a piece of paper. And there is a paper, if I didn't mention it. You will need the white paper that is included in your box. Go ahead and we're going to try, it's called texture rubbing. So you're going to take a piece of your white paper and your pencil, and then you're going to keep your fossil on your surface, and you are going to put the paper on top of your fossil. So I'll put it right here so you guys can see. And we are going to gently rub the side of your pencil across the top of your paper. It should be able to show you the texture of your fossil. So I'm going to take mine, and if you hold your paper down on either side and you rub it like this, and the side of the pencil, it'll give you an idea of what your fossil looks like. The good thing is, if you mess up or you don't like that side, go ahead and flip your fossil over and try again in a different spot. I didn't really like mine. I don't know if I didn't do it correctly, but I'm going to try it again to try to get an outline of your fossil. Okay, so this is mine. Yours obviously may look a little different. And then what you're going to do is you can cut that paper out, or even tear around it if you want, and use your paper, or your tape or your glue, and you're going to put it right here on page 11 in this little square here. And then next you're going to tell me about your fossil. Now, as you know, a fossil used to be something that was living. It used to be a living organism. So tell me based on what you see in your fossil, write about it. Do you think it lived on land or sea? Tell me all about it, and that is right next to where you're going to put your paper, also on page 11. So tell me all about your fossil and what you think it used to be. Now you get to, on page 12, you get to guess what kind of fossil there is. So there are 6 different kinds of fossils that are listed here that we're going to focus on. We have the brachiopods, the crinoids, the gastropods, the trilobites, horn coral, and the cephalopods. There is an explanation on page 12 underneath both of them, as you can see here, or all 6 of them, to tell you a little bit more about the fossil. And then right here you're going to write about what fossil you think you have and why. And for all of those that are using the RACES strategy, writing strategy, I would like you to work on using the strategies that you've been doing in class. So remember to restate the question, And it actually kind of does it for you. I think my fossil is because. So I guess just think through that. Make sure that you use complete sentences, capitalization, and punctuation. So go ahead and fill that out on page 12. And then last but not least, we have to talk about where you think your fossil came from. So on page 13, it is asking that you record where you found your fossil. Now obviously, you got your fossil here in this kit, but based on the information that you have read, based on the information that you have guesstimated and you've seen size, the height, length, width, what type of fossil it is, and the information you've written about it, tell me where you think the fossil came from. Can you make an educated guess? What do you know about the fossil that could give you clues? So go ahead and write that on page 13 in your book right here during that section. And then learn a little bit more about fossils. Fossils help us understand the Earth's history by teaching us about the plants and animals that lived here. So I hope you learned a lot about this, about your fossil, and you can bring this book back to me to show me what you learned. I just wanted to share a few more additional resources that were inside the book for each of you. In there you will see a card that looks like this called COSI Connect. On the back of the card is a 4-step process of how to download the app. This will give you hundreds of science videos and activities to continue learning through COSI Connect's app. This is a great resource for families to provide extra information for your kids, extra resources, extra activities. If you're like me, sometimes you need a little bit of something extra for your kids to do, and especially with summer coming up, it'll give you some great tools and fun things to do with them. It also will give them some fun things to do on their own. So go ahead and take a look at that. Go ahead and download that app. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. There also is more about dinosaurs and using the QR codes on here. So there is another brochure or flyer or pamphlet in there about that. So go ahead and take a look at that. You can figure out your answers and see if you know how well you did. There's some questions on the back to test your knowledge as well. Last but not least, there is a free general admission voucher to COSI. These are good until June 30th of 2022. So don't throw this away. Don't get rid of this. This is good for any kid up to the age of 15. On the back it does tell you how to redeem the voucher. So make sure you take hold of that and try to, if you have some time, try to make a trip to COSI. Hopefully we can gather some more information from them at some point for next school year and do some more fun COSI activities, but make sure you don't lose that because that'll be a great resource for you to get a free entry into COSI. So hopefully you will be able to utilize all 3 of those. Again, any questions, contact us. Thank you so much for being a part of the Benz family. We are so thankful for all of you and for all the work that you are doing for your kids, supporting them and loving them. Thank you so much.